Next round of the FA Cup. Oh, yeah.
Well, before we start, I think we've just got to say we have an Elvis impersoner in the...
Why, what's happened? Is my collar up? Whose collar's up?
No one told me, did they? You promised me you'd tell me. You told me before the game. And I thought I'd fixed it as well. We got back a long way.
But it looked good.
Yeah, you are.
The collar out here, you know.
He's 90.
Am I setting a new trend?
No, Danny, I don't think you and Trent...
Sitting next to you.
I don't think you and Trent say...
Yeah, but you make me look better.
There is no trend that is possible to be set on this show.
There was a soccer match and it happened and Aston Villa won it in a...
Well, listen, we said at half-time, this arguably was one of the worst home 45 minutes that Villa had under Unai Emery, because they have been terrific for the most part. Not always perfect, but how many times have we watched Villa and they had not even mustered one shot on goal at home against one of the poorer defensive teams in England, in the Premier League, in Aston Villa, and West Ham, albeit they'd made a managerial change, but he'd only had 24 hours to work with them. But Villa made West Ham look like a proper side in the first half. In the second half, when they opened things up, got wider, got more pace in their play, got midfielders into the box, got bodies into the box, got crosses in. All of a sudden, we saw the frailties of West Ham and we saw what Aston Villa can be about. And there was Morgan Rogers, a player we've talked about a lot. I suppose a lot of people have. You know, a youngster who scores goals, takes the ball in, big, powerful runner, really great signing for Villa, and he's there in the right place at the right time to get them back in the game, and then they go from strength to strength.
Hey, Friday night, job done for Villa. They got the weekend free now. Players loving it, Kieran.
Yeah, I mean they made hard work of it, didn't? But I think that basically West Ham. He's going to have a lot of work to do, Graham Potter, isn't he? It looked like it was a good first half performance, but like Craig said, we saw the frailties come in, and Villa, the signs of a good team is when you're not playing well and then all of a sudden you can just create a chance out of nothing, and that's what we saw. And they are devastating on the break, and we saw in that second goal how quickly they go from back to front is pretty scary, really, and that's the sign of a good team.
That's what we were saying at half-time, wasn't it? West Ham maybe the only thing they'd be disappointed with that they didn't take advantage of this lacklustre Aston Villa more.
Yeah, and I think what you saw is the size of the job that Graham Potter does have. It's a team that is, okay, they get that first goal, they got something to hold on to, but then Aston Villa equalise, you see the frailty, the confidence. And you know what it's like is losing becomes a habit just as much as winning does, and that's why, they need to figure things out. But I think when you look at the lineup there, that's not necessarily a group of players that would suit the style that Graham Potter wants. So I think you'll see more of what he did today, which is play sort of, defensive, but then look to play and break quickly with the pace that they've got in the wider areas.
No, also we saw from that set piece where Konza's... Why Paqueta's picking up Konza at the back post, that's another sort of argument. We see that a lot these days, players that are... I mean, he's not small, Paqueta, but he's certainly not the biggest of West Ham players. But it's almost like this VAR era has encouraged players to hit the ground like he did.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding the fact there's no VAR at this game. So the chances of the referee picking that up or an assistant are very slim. Not that it was a free kick, it wasn't, but that's what he was looking for in the hope that, VAR, it's not there. But they're so happy to feel their first intent and first school of thought is not to defend the player, but in the minimalist contact is go to ground and hope that somebody picks up on it. I think that's a good starting point, for the basics of some of the things West Ham need to improve on is the defensive basics, the marking and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, that just frustrates me when I see a player tasked with, doing a job on the defender at the first bit of contact, hits the ground, then Konza is totally free and it all goes wrong from there.
Nedum and Alexis have been standing by the way, and they've had lots of technical problems, so lucky them. And instead of just running away, they've stayed the professionals that they are. Obviously, we've just reflected on Aston Villa against West Ham. Guys, what would you like to add?
Oh, we have a lot to add. Well, Nedum's embarrassed, so he turned off his heated gilet. But let's not talk about that, shall we, Nedum? Aston Villa, they finally showed up in the second half, didn't they?
Yeah, they sure did, yeah. I think it's fair enough to say that Unai Emery probably told them that was unacceptable in the first half.
That was embarrassing, not unacceptable.
Yes, it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. And they very much stepped forward in the second half. They were more aggressive in terms of how they attacked. I think West Ham at times played into their hands in terms of allowing a bit more space for Villa to run into. But then some of that maybe is down to the changes that they had to make. I think Somerville was doing a good job in the first half for West Ham.
Yeah.
So for him having to come off, and then for, let's say the purist isn't exactly the most exciting right side in all of football with Wan-Bissaka and Soufal. You know, defensively they're fine, but all of a sudden they lost that spark, that ability to go forward. And the same, unfortunately, with Danny Ings, you know, when he had to come on for Fulkrug. So it's not their best version, but I think for Potter, you'll see some positives, but this is the Villa that we expected to see. If they would have started the game like this game could have been out of hand very, very quickly. But instead, you know, they're in the name's in the hat for the draw for the next round, and given how bad they've been historically in this competition, I think it's what Emery said. He wants to win a trophy, and, you know, that's the first step.
Well, continuing to look at it from the West Ham perspective, of course, Graham Potter, this is his first game in charge right now. We're trying to figure out what identity he could give to this team going forward, especially with the players that he has. He's talked so much about wanting to play possession-based football, wanting to be able to score the goals as well. You did speak about how they do have to sort out that defence as well, because they have conceded some of the most goals in the Premier League so far. They have some of the least possession in the Premier League so far as well. So what do you think he's thinking after what he saw today, barring the injuries?
I think he's going to be realistic. You know, he's not been with the team for long enough to really be able to sort of make a difference as such. But I think there'll be certain elements of what he's tried to show them today. I think more of like a boxing midfield, being organised, making it difficult. And I think the fact that you could hold a Premier League team to no shots in the first half, that's credit to you. I think that is definitely a step in the right direction. And don't get me wrong, the second half was more of an onslaught. But they're still very much in the game. They had chances right at the end. And I think they still had that belief. I think given the fact that they've been bad enough to where they needed to change their manager, you think that maybe the performance could have been a bit like today's school, but I don't think it was. I think as he looks at his side, he's obviously going to be looking to get some players back fit as soon as possible. He's captain Bowen, you know, seeing a full crew, hopefully he's not out for too long. Somerville, you know, these are good attacking players.
Yeah.
If he gets those, then maybe he can have a style of play which the fans will enjoy, because for the majority of the game, their fans were into it. But then as the second half wore on, it got a little bit quieter, which is understandable.
It got a lot bit quieter. I'm going to put you on the spot, though, because like I said, new manager, January transfer window very much open. He's probably wondering who he can bring in to strengthen this squad. But I do know that you picked out a couple of players on this West Ham time that you said, and I quote, past it.
Past it?
Past it. Or just not the same anymore, probably, if you're trying to rebuild a new West Ham going
With all due
forward.
respect, like Danny Ings, I think he's been a very, very good player, but for the way he played against, say, this Aston Villa lineup today, you know, he's less of a physical match for the likes of Ings and Konza. I don't think his pace at the moment is really there to where he can be a really big threat in behind. Whereas I think when you sort of perceive the best versions of West Ham, you're seeing a Jared Bowen. You're probably going to see a Fulkrug using his body. You see an Antonio, combination of the two. So I think when that happened, they lost that ability to really be able to stretch the game. And I think at times it cost them territory. So I don't think he's necessarily going to be the answer for them. But with Fulkrug being out, maybe it's time to go into the market and find somebody who can maybe fill those boots. Because, again, we don't know how long Antonio is going to be out for as well. But I think if they want to be successful, they need to have a striker that's going to be firing and one that can take them up the field, which unfortunately they didn't have after that substitution needed to be made.
Well, hopefully we do see Fulkrug and Mikel Antonio back for West Ham very soon. But just final thoughts, I suppose, then on Aston Villa now, because we spoke about in the pre-show how, you know, Unai Emery has prioritised this competition. We know it's away back in Europe for them as well. Have they shown that they can go for the long run in this competition as well? Because this is the furthest they've made it, back in the fourth round again, which is where they fell last year, and they've been falling in the third round before this. So have they shown that they can finally get past?
Yeah, but I think it just depends what exactly you're trying to show, because I think as you look back to last season, you know, the current holders of the cup are Manchester United, and we saw them play against Liverpool side in the quarter-final and have a great game. Then you saw them against Coventry in the semi and they were a disaster. So you think at that point...
Disaster but got through.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the point. I think as far as it comes to the FA Cup, it's about getting into the later rounds. You're in the fourth round. Can you get to the next round? Can you get to the next round? And can you win those big games along the way? And they've shown that they can change their performance, find a way to win. And I think as a consequence, they'll be a very dangerous side in that draw.
Who won that final, by the way, again?
I don't know, whoever played in the Community Shield or whatever. I'm not sure.
All right. I'm still a bit sore, Dan.
Thank you very much. Alexis, where are you going tomorrow? Which game are you covering for us tomorrow?
Oh, well, I'm kind of alongside Danny, and I'm doing the absolute massive game that is Chelsea against Morecambe. Never seen Morecambe play. To be honest, I'm not really sure exactly where it is, but I'm excited to be back at Stamford Bridge.
Geography, where's Morecambe, Craig?
Northwest.
Northwest, there we are. Thank you very much.
Near Blackpool. Near the coast.
Okay.
Rains a lot.
Nedum, where are you going?
I'm just going to take the day off tomorrow. I'm going to leave you with Mark Ogden doing the double bubble, doing the Liverpool-Man City combo. It's going to be a great day for him, and I'm sure he'll be in a great mood.
I'm sure he'll be full of smiles, as always. Thank you very much, guys. Much appreciated. We're just looking ahead. Of course, you said Tamworth Spurs. For you, Craig, are those games?
Actually, that game, well, obviously we're covering our main game is City Salford.
Yes.
So that's again, it's Manchester, sort of derby that would never normally come around apart from this cup competition. Of course, Salford the story of Salford, which I'm sure Danny knows better than me, is the investment from a chunk of the old Man United players. So they've had a lot of money been put in, and of course, you know,
Thank you very much.
if they could, you know, take City off the tracks, I doubt it, but that would be a huge story, bearing in mind the investment in Salford, bearing in mind it's a derby, and also the fact that, you know, City have had a pretty terrible time, although they'll look as if they've gotten back on the horse and got going again. But there's always a vulnerability about them. But I do think the Tamworth-Tottenham one, just because Postecoglou's got this thing where he was under a lot of pressure, got that excellent first leg result against Liverpool. But if they were to slip up in this one against the likes of Tamworth,
No
it's
excuse.
all going to flood back towards him, all the sticks. So that's a huge one for him.
What about you, Kieran, in those games?
Oh, who more would want a Tottenham upset than me in this room?
Oh, dear. Wow, that's very unprofessional.
Listen, objectivity.